Hi, it's Kieran here. I've noticed some people are making some exercises more difficult for themselves than they need to be. Easy is good, so let's take a look at that. I'll first show you some code that people have been doing that is hard to write, and then we'll look at code that makes things easier. So let's say your company is Tarty Dolls, not related to any other company you could possibly think of. Now it makes dolls of two types and two styles. The types are psychopath or terrorist, and the styles are gang or loner. The prices across here, so psychopath is $20, a terrorist is $18. If you want a psychopath gang, it adds $12. If you want to make it a loner, that adds $15. So a psychopath loner would be that plus that for $35. Now let's say you want a page that has a URL like this one, where you give two parameters in the get, a doll type and a doll style. And the doll type is either psychopath or terrorist, and the style is either loner or gang. Okay, now I'm particularly interested in validation and processing of this. What's a good way to write the code, a convenient way to write the code that's easy to write, easy to debug, and it's easy to tell whether you're actually done with the task or not. So here's one way that you shouldn't do. Let's look at that first. All right, so there are two parameters. So we get doll type and doll style from the URL using these functions, and that's fine. Now, one combination is the doll style is gang and the doll type is psychopath. So we do that, and if we've got both of those, then we set the price to $32. Well, that seems fairly straightforward. So what could possibly be wrong about this? Well, let's keep going. Another possibility is doll style equals gang, same as up there, and doll type equals terrorist, okay? But then we start thinking, well, what about errors? What if someone types gang for doll style, but they type something other than psychopath or terrorist for the type? Well, that's what this if statement tests. And so we've got an error message there for that. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3 so far. All right, then we go to the combinations of loner. So of doll style equals loner. So if we have a loner psychopath, there's the price. If we have a loner terrorist, there's the price. And then I have one of these messy if statements to see if it's loner and it's not psychopath and it's not terrorist, okay, then I'll have that error message. All right, and if it's psychopath, but it's not gang or, did I already do that? I actually am not sure, but could be like one or two of these. But anyway, so here's another error message. Oh, wait a minute. Here's another condition. We have if it's this one's terrorist, and if that's not gang and it's not loner, then we'll do that. Okay, that takes care of all the conditions, right? Well, actually, it doesn't. There's at least one missing, but it's hard to tell. So we've got a whole bunch of if statements here. Okay, each one of which handles a specific combination of conditions. So there's one, and there's another one, and there's another one, and so on. Okay, so in fact, I haven't even started to talk about the lowercase and trimming issue here. That makes things even more complicated. All right, now let's say, and that's fine, this isn't too bad, although it's incomplete, but it's still, you can see it's getting pretty messy when I have one if statement for every combination of conditions. That's the essential problem here. Now what happens if you decide to add other features like color? So you can have pink, green, or purple. So you have doll style, doll type, and doll color. And doll color can be, well, geez, we've got so many combinations now. We'd like triple the number of if statements here we need to check. And what if we decide that we don't just have gang and loner, we're going to introduce another style like Justice Warrior. Well, we're going to have to add lots of different statements for the new values of this. Oh man. So we end up having, having to multiply all the values for doll style times all the values for type, gives us a start on the number of if statements, but then we haven't even dealt with the errors yet. So as you can see, this is really a problem. There are other problems too, like for example, this one says, so an error message, sorry, type must be psychopath or terrorist. And then your local company grammar Nazi comes in and says, no, this shouldn't be must, it should be shall. Okay, so you go and turn that to shall. Uh-oh, but you've missed this one. This is the same error message as you can see, but because it's repeated, if you want to change it once, you've got to change it in lots of places. But the real so that's a problem too, but the real problem is there's just so many ifs because you have one if statement for every combination that's possible. Let's write it differently. Remember in Ghostbusters actually that they talk about don't cross the streams? That's kind of what we'll do. Now notice that doll style and doll type are independent of each other, right? So we look down at the prices, so that this variable, type and style, are independent. So type adds these prices, style adds these prices. So and often that's the case, is these variables are independent like this. So let's look at a different way of doing it. And this is what I've used in the course, but I just wanted to show you how it compares with this. So remember, we've got lots and lots of if statements. What I do in this one, however, is to validate and process each variable separately. So we have code that just deals with type, and we have code that just deals with style. All right, so here's this code deals with type. And a separate bit of code deals with style. This is validation. When we get into processing, this code just deals with type. This code just deals with style. And that's it. So let's look at this. So we've got, here's the validation of type. So we get the doll type there. And if it's missing, we set the error message to that. And if the error message is nothing by the time we get down to here, we check to see if it's one of the two we know about. So that's checked there. Then we do a separate check on style. Notice that this code doesn't even refer to doll type at all. Doll type is done separately. This one just does doll style. Separating your process out into bits and pieces into separate chunks will make your life much easier, and easy is good. One thing to notice here is that the error message, I've got this dot. That means add to the end of, append to the end of. That's very important here. If I left off this dot like that, then this error message would replace the one we set up here. And the user wouldn't know what went on with their doll type if there was an error. So we need to make sure we do that. So this is the validation. I get a parameter, one of the parameters, and then I test it. Then I get the next one, and then I test it. Okay? And I accumulate error messages as I go. That's what this dot does. It accumulates error messages. Okay. Down here in processing, should the processing continue, there are no errors. Again, I have separate stuff. Price is already set at the top to 0. So up here where I've initialized these variables, I created this thing called price and made it 0. Down here, I've got processing for the type and separate processing for the style. So the type, if it's psychopath, then price plus, price is 0 at the moment, add 20 to price. That's what the plus equals. Add means add to. If it's not psychopath, it has to be terrorist. So we'll add that in. We've already checked and verified that it's one or the other, remember. That was part of the validation up here. See this? It's already checked. All right. Okay. Okay. Down here, once we've checked the type, we can check the style. All right. And then if the style is gang, we add 12 to the price. If it's loaner, else, it has to be loaner, we'll add 15. And then we can do the output. So the essence of this story is, here, if I have an if statement for every combination of variables, it's basically unsupportable. It's too hard. It's too hard for me. It would just break my brain to try to figure all this out. And if you're running into a program that breaks your brain with lots of combinations and things, you start thinking, wait a minute. You think to yourself, self, is there a better way to do this? And I hope yourself would say yes. Down here, a better approach, I deal with each one of these separately. Now, sometimes it's not possible to deal with that, because there are dependencies in business between things. So if type and style, if one of the combinations was particularly expensive, then you'd have to do some anding. But even so, the validation would still, you could treat always as separate pieces. Now, some of the things I said before is, what happens if you start adding things like dull color? Well, you could just make another one of these for color. Green, pink, or purple, right? Wouldn't be very hard. And then down here, you just add another one of these for color. You don't have to deal with all the combinations. You just deal with psychopath, with type, style, and color. What if you added another as well as psychopath and terrorist, you have justice warrior? Well, simple enough. You just add justice warrior to another value, another one of these, and not equals justice warrior. And you skip this because you think it's irrelevant there. Go down to here, and you would just add another if to an else if to this. So if doll type equals justice warrior, price equals whatever, and so on. So this video is about not crossing the streams. If you have multiple variables that you need to validate or need to process or whatever you need to do to them, try to keep the processing of each variable as separate as you can. Definitely the validation will usually be separate, pretty easy to make separate, and the processing is usually pretty easy too, although sometimes there are combinations you have to deal with. So try to go for this. And this is the style of processing that you'll find in our examples on our course website. So I hope that was helpful. Bye.